Okay, I think we're live. Mic check. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to do another one of my famous, incredibly tedious and boring videos where I scratch something with sandpaper. I am doing a hand rubbed finish, and I'm doing it in my kitchen. If you can't tell, I am currently using a sanding block with 400 grit paper. Excuse my reach. I'm going to grab more sandpaper. You can probably make out the glare on the table, and that's what we're here to eliminate. That's the mission. I've made a few videos about these tables, and as long as we're here watching me sand for an extended period of time, welcome. The story on the tables is they are a shaker style design. I honestly thought they would sell a little bit better, especially to folks from out of the metro area looking for kind of Amish or cabin style. And so they are made with reclaimed wood from a business that harvests city trees. Well, I don't harvest them. I'm not sure if they buy them or they just get them from arborists, but it's a local business that is working on getting Minneapolis, the city I'm in, they're working on getting it declared a managed forest. And somehow maybe they can contract with the city to reuse the trees that get taken down, because we had a lot of elms that were getting taken down. And with the emerald ash borer, there was obviously a lot of ash trees that came down. All right, so I'm getting a fair amount of dust here. Let me just use a rag to collect the dust while I'm making the video. I was using my Festool sander, or not sander, but there you go. That's just dried up finish. I have a sanding block that is connected to a hose. It's this guy. I talk about it in my videos all the time. If you haven't seen me talk about it, you haven't watched enough of my videos. This is the hose that connects to the spud in the back, as equipped with 320 grit paper right now. I will run over this thing with that sanding block at some point, but the reason I'm using my cheapo Amazon cork block is it's hard. It's got a little bit of a flex. It's comfortable to use. It's not a block of wood, but it's a good way to grip a piece of abrasive. And when you get out to the edge, you don't want your paper to start, or any abrasive, to start going over and cutting off here and not cutting off there and giving you some weird grooves. You want to retain your edges. And so this gives you the ability to just go out into space and maintain exactly this surface. One side is 100% square here. The other side is chamfered. That means it has a little bit of an angle. And so what that does is actually gives the paper, which has a tendency to roll rather than, it has a tendency to do this rather than doing that, unless you take the time to fold it. So with that chamfer, it gives me a little bit of room for the paper, for me and the paper, to not have to worry about that this is going to pucker down and again mess up the edge of the finish. So if somebody's got tips about doing hand rub finishes, I'm actually open to hearing about your experiences and what you recommend. to jump ahead, if you have to go somewhere, I saw the process for doing a hand rub finish. 400 grit paper on a felt, I'm using cork block. You follow that up with, I've got a bowl of, this is quadruple aught. It's a higher end steel wool. I got this, I think, from Woodcraft. There's no oil in it. It's a very fine grit. It's in soapy water. What you do is you rub the finish, you grind it down by hand, and then you take the steel wool and then you wipe it, and then that soapy water acts as a lubricant, and it gives you a really nice smooth finish. I have a table over here that I've already done. It's night and day. It's an amazing effect. I mentioned in a video I made, or I'm editing, how I made an ash table or an elm table. It was really nice. I called it the white newfie because it was kind of oversized. The base was a mistake. It was supposed to be a smaller base for a different table, and it turned out to be the wrong size for some reason. I don't know. I was having a waking dream. But I ended up making another tabletop for it. And then for whatever reason, one ear of the table decided to just lift. It just dried funny and completely, warped. And I thought, well, whatever, I'll just discount it and just blow it out. It's fine. And I did this process to it. And I'm laughing because it's time consuming. I mean, this is not a shortcut to anything. But the parents, I think they messaged me and they said that, wow, this is really a nice finish on the table. We really like this table. And I said, there's a reason. It's because you have to find somebody that knows about this process and knows how to do it, and then actually has the time and the willpower to make it happen. And I'm just going to switch to some better paper here, fresh paper. I didn't know anything about it. I worked in a woodworking supply store for years. I never heard about a hand rubbed finish. I mean, I heard about putting shellac on in a French polish, but that's very different because you're leaving a glossy material and you're building it up. And the way this works is you put what I'm going to say is a fair amount of finish. You really build up your coats and you get a nice thick coat. And then what you do is you subtract it, you bring it back down with the aggressiveness of the 400, which obviously isn't the most aggressive paper. Some gloss we had on the end. But you use the 400 grit, and then you take out any fine scratches left by the 400 with the steel wool. And the end result, if you had a really flat, smooth surface to begin with, and you used maybe a nicer finish, my finish has been leaving me a lot of pits and dimples and craters, which is why I built it up. There's about 7 or 8 coats of finish on here, I think, because I wanted to make sure that I could really sand it back and then hit it with the steel wool. So I am going to, I'm going to see if anybody's got any questions or anything and say hi to people. 9 people watching. We had 16. Hello to Nikhil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my vacuum. I'm going to plug in my sanding block. I'm going to get my my soapy water out of the way. I'm going to clean off my sanding block with that. So you get a lot of fine dust. This block and this hose will work on a regular vacuum cleaner, like a rigid, any shop wet dry vac type machine. And so if you want to use this technology, this sanding block with the hose, you can even get a turn off for a second. You can even get a speed control. Harbor Freight has them; they're super cheap. What you do is I plug in my just rigid shop vac. Technically, it's a wet dry vac, but I plug in my rigid vacuum to a speed control from Harbor Freight, and then I can actually dial down the suction. This is not an anti-stat hose, which is one thing that Festool's really known for. Is it takes the electrical charge out of the air or out of the particles. And so on their power sanders, you're, I guess, ionizing item, you have the dust is going to float, and it's that electrical charge that helps it get up in the air. When you hand sand, you're not creating that amount of electrical charge, so this doesn't have to be blended with some kind of some material that's going to conduct current, like carbon. So all that said, I have videos about how I've hooked this up to just regular old big box vacuum cleaners, and I've used this for drywall work as well as furniture stuff. So an amazing little tool. I've gotten a lot of stuff done with it. I've done thousands and thousands of dollars worth of drywall work, sanding the mud down with that block. So it saved me on mudding and taping and drywall refinishing stuff, not just kept the dust out of the air on stuff like this. So that the nice thing about that thing is it actually helps me kind of see where the shiny spots are and what's left to work on. So I'm going to go to the craters and the dimples. I'm going to cut them back. There's a big patch at the end here that's still glossy. So I'm going to try and keep the block as flat as possible. Wipe up the dust. I'm going to actually clean up the dust. So let's see, anybody there? The Rahad, was that Rahadi? Did I pronounce that right? Podcast? Hello. Hello to everybody watching. So the other thing I do with this guy, as you can see, it connects and disconnects quickly. Clean off my sandpaper, but I can collect the dust from my dust cloth. So I'm going to give this another run here. You always want to keep your abrasive surface clear so that the heat of the dust on dust doesn't make it start to stick together. turn off my vacuum. So, what I have now, I still have some texture in the surface, and here's where I stray from the teachings of Kevin a little bit. Because I hand finished this, and he probably sprayed the piece of furniture that inspired my use of this process, my area is not flat. It's a pretty flat piece of wood, but I used a paintbrush to apply the finish, and so I have some grooves, and then I have some spots where I had some bubbling up of the finish, and it created pockets and craters. But what I found is that there's a line of scouring pads, basically. They're made by Norton, which makes nice sandpaper. Same company as this. They make these pads, and they make them in different strengths. There's a white one. There's a white one with no abrasive. There's the gray one with a little bit of abrasive. Then there's the green and the red, and I think the green is probably not as abrasive as the red. I think the red is crazy abrasive. And so I'm using the green in a hurry here to take down any shiny dimple spots that I see before I do the steel wool treatment. And so just wherever I see a little shiny spot, it's where there's a kind of a dish, a little crater, or a little low spot in the finish. I'm just kind of scratching up the gloss off it with this pad. I'm going to turn this around. I've kind of forgotten to say it too. So you're getting advice that I have failed to deliver, because I actually did photography also before I became a professional dad at home. Your light source makes a huge difference. Let's see. If I put the light back here, it's going to skip, and it's going to show you the sparkle. Let's see if I can. Roy's Timber Art Techniques. Hi, Roy. I'm assuming it's Roy. Or hi, Roy's Timber Art. I am making tables. My son, I made a couple of these. They didn't sell very well because it's a shaker style design. I think it does better in like New England, East Coast, Amish country, maybe. I'm not sure if you're seeing a sparkle. It looks almost like little flakes of snow or shiny spots. But that is what I'm trying to eliminate, is little spots where I can see the light getting kind of sparkling. I want to eliminate the sparkle from the gloss. And so, to keep answering Roy's question, shaker style tables, it's not exactly a company, but we have nicknamed we have a nickname for stuff that we sell, that we make, called mini mesas, after Minnesota and Minneapolis. And so this is what we call a jellyfish, with big head on top and long skinny legs on the base. Let me get you right over the table so you can see, kind of register the sparkle a little better. There we go. All right, that's perfect. So turn that off for a second. So that area right there is what I'm talking about. That is a low spot, because I have been running over the area with a sanding block and you can see how it's still there. So that's why I use the sanding block. If you just hand sanded it, yeah, you would get in there, but you'd end up with little dips, and then there would be the scratches that are cut in by the paper, and the steel wool might have a little trickier time getting some of that out, whereas the abrasive pads are they're more flexible. They're able to reach in there, but they're also, it's going to give you a finer scratch. And let's make this go away right now. So that's what I'm doing right there, is making that go away. Let me reposition or see if we can catch the light. So there we go. Up in this corner, just firmly but gently saying goodbye to, it's almost like snowflake salt, if you're not familiar with snowflake. I'm in Minnesota, so we have about 3,000 words for snow, like Eskimos. And most of them are unhappy words. Although there are some people that really love it. So let me back out and give myself some room here. There's one more. Let's see. I'm not sure if you're seeing it. There's some areas in here. I'm just going to drag the pad over them, and then I think some people commented, so I checked the messages. All right, everybody's just saying hi. Hello to everybody that said hello. I think there's Freedom. I'm not sure if I said hi to you. So this is, like I said, this is the lower grit scouring pad or sanding or finishing pad. I'm going to gently run over the edges so I don't end up with like a shiny, weird side edge. I'm going to turn the light on here, and then I'm going to do a quick inspection. The tables don't weigh very much, so they do dance around a little bit when I get going. Normally, I think I mentioned, normally I sand everything with the grain, so I'm always going kind of north-south on this stuff. But the finish is thick enough, and the abrasive is fine enough to where I'm just doing kind of a, as you can see, a circle motion or circular move on them. Just trying to get the trouble spots down as quick as possible. I think there's just a little dent right there. So, I mean, overall, the top looks pretty good. So, anyways, I think we're there. Hill article, welcome to. This is not pine, Rowan. This is, back out a little farther. The base is, or the legs here, the legs are ash for strength and stability. The sides, I am not sure. They're very soft, but they're on the side, so they have this kind of smoky, might be that smoky beetle bug stuff from the East Coast. This is ambrosia beetle. I always want to say sycamore. This is ambrosia beetle wood. My older son picked it out. He wanted to have tables to profit off of and flip, so he commissioned this pair of tables from me while I was making these. I made two. There's hand-cut dovetail drawers So I made these. We picked out, let's see if I'm in frame. Give you the tour. This is elm. So this is locally sourced elm. Really great grain structure. Probably just going to leave the gloss. It's the overhang on this is really long. It's that's why we call it the jellyfish, because the head's so big and the legs are long. But it's not going to be super shiny, or at least it's not going to be super reflective, because there's always going to be a shadow cast on the drawer. Sorry, once it's in place. So I have a vintage knob to put in here. This is actually, I didn't want to do these because I was kind of sick of this design and they didn't sell particularly well. I thought maybe I would make them and ship them, but that seems problematic. I'd just rather make something that sells better in my area. Something bigger, more drawers, cheaper. But there's a lot of improvements on these guys. This is a solid maple drawer. Nobody does that. Nobody cuts hand-cut dovetails. So are they perfect? I mean, they're not dead on. There's a few tiny gaps. But on the outside, you can see. And then I went with 2 big dovetails instead of my normal 3, because I thought it would save me some time. And it did with the cutting and so on. And I mean, it looks all right. And so those will plug in, assuming they fit. And like I said, vintage knob. We got a cool, I think, copper or something. So ambrosia maple top. It's pretty soft stuff. So I think it's a silver maple, not a hard maple. So if you're gonna use ambrosia, I would recommend the hard maple for durability, just so it doesn't bruise like a peach, which this has a tendency to do, although having a bunch of finish on here certainly makes me feel better. And so thanks for the question. It's not pine. I mean, it's probably about as hard as pine, just because it's the softer maple variety. You can get, there's a harder ambrosia maple out there, I believe. So now what I'm doing is just have some soapy water. This is the magic time. What we're doing is we're using the fancy steel wool. Just going to move in every direction so that I'm hitting all those reflective spots, front, back, and side. And then I'm going to go with the grain, fair amount. And it's hard to describe how nice the effect is. You know, there's a tactile, there's a touch sensation there that it's not like commercially sprayed finishes where you get a little bit of that orange peel a lot of the time. It's just a really cool, it's one of those things where I think it was George Nakashima, famous furniture maker. He encouraged people to touch his stuff. He's like, yeah, check it out. And so I feel like you get that with this process in a way that's hard to explain. Unless you've ever seen it. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Ron. Let's see. Thank you for correcting. I didn't know anything about woodwork, but I love watching. Well, I tell you, Rowan, there's a lot of ways to get into woodworking without woodworking. One way to do it is to watch some videos. I would recommend, I mean, I wanted to do a pretty large series about woodworking with nothing, but obviously it's the dangerous tools that scare a lot of people away. But depending on where you live in your means. If you travel to, even a park, you can go to a park if you don't have a lake. You can find some driftwood, and you find a cool piece of driftwood, and then just clean it off, clean it outside if it's going to be dusty or weird. Make sure it's dry, and look for bug holes. But you can you can sand it down. You can use scouring pads, steel wool, whatever, and then you can do an oil, and maybe you can make a nice thing to hold plants up, or to decorate an apartment or house or whatever. There's a lot of ways to kind of connect with wood because they remind us of nature. They again, George Nakashima was a big believer in the idea that trees have a life beyond beyond just kind of standing there drinking water out of the ground and growing leaves. And so you honor the tree's life by trying to make something semi-fancy out of it. So, all right, let me get all my junk off here. Flashlight. Probably gonna have to do the drawer fronts now that these things look like that. So let's see, that's exactly what I've kept away because of the tools, but I want to get over that too. I guess it depends on where you live, what your situation is. I mean, I visited New York, and there's going to be shores there. You could take a train out to a place like that, and you could find things that wash up on the beach. I walk my dog near the Mississippi River, where there's a dog park, and we get some of the most amazing driftwood just rolling down the rivers. And some of it, it's about as big as I am, so sometimes I want to drag it away, which is a bad idea. But to answer Rowan's question, this is a local lumber store that reclaims wood, but you can go to places like Woodcraft, Rockler. You can just use Google and you can look up hardwoods. You want to be careful. Do some homework about wood toxicity. A lot of North American white woods, they're fine. If you're going to work with them, unless you have some kind of skin allergies, you wear gloves. Make sure that you're being safe and you're not breathing in the dust. Because if it feels hard here and you turn it to dust, it's going to get in your lungs and be just as hard. But there are a lot of you can get project kits. Like I said, I would start with Woodcraft and Rockler because they're specially designed to set you up with specialty equipment like the steel wool, the fancy mouse, my super fancy machine here. If you have a bunch of money and you would like to get into woodworking, then Festool has some super intuitive and they're not cheap, but the dust collection they take very seriously to protect their users. They're beautiful machines, and then they have a whole line. So they have abrasives that go with the machines. So it's a whole system. It's kind of like Apple products where everything is right there for you. Yeah, no problem about the safety. Always, it's true of anything. I mean, if you decided to start, like repainting your car, and so you rented a space and you didn't wear a mask and you just went into the garage and started spraying, that would be probably as bad, faster than irresponsible woodworking. So with anything, just kind of do your homework. And then you're going to learn, and then you can kind of teach yourself. But like YouTube is great for communicating ideas. I have a whole channel. It's the Flipping Idiot. I do a lot of woodworking stuff. I'm going to maybe do some other regular woodworking channels so that this can be. It doesn't sound like I'm doing trying to jump the the Grand Canyon in a shopping basket for the name of the channel. But in the meantime, let me show you here. This is what it looks like. That super heavy gloss is gone. I think I got most of it. There might be a few little, like a little patch, something like that. That's almost not worth worrying about, but you know, as long as I'm here and I'm set up, I'll take care of any stragglers. There's a little bit on this edge you can see. That's that. And you know, honestly, where'd it go? Let's see. It's kind of like polishing in reverse. And you know, the other thing I was gonna mention to Rowan and everybody else watching, I mean, I do, you know, the question is, am I a woodworker that fixes furniture, or did I have to learn or get better at woodworking because of the furniture I was seeing? And it's a combination. You know, the economy's a little slow right now. I'm not going to get way into that, but if you find a really beautiful old piece of furniture, you can rescue it. You know, if you get your hands on it, you don't know what to do with it. There are better and worse ways to refinish things, so you can own an amazing piece of furniture for pennies on the dollar. So let's see. The 3D printing thing, yeah, the line printing with the soy line, not so bad, but that, my kids love the Dungeons and Dragons stuff with the resin printers, and uber toxic. So yeah, like I said, these are the drawers. We'll show this to people that maybe just tuned in or get a chance to see them. It's the glossy finish. One quick tip that somebody told me was, if you build, even if you want a flat finish, if you build it up with gloss, it gives you more depth. It gives you a little bit more dimensionality before you put the satin on, or the semi-gloss. Because if you build it up and build it up and build it up, and every layer has kind of a cloud in it, because that's what gives you that satin finish, is some of this white powdery stuff that's on my gloves. That's basically, there's stuff floating in the finishes. And if you build it up with a clear gloss a little bit, it helps, like I said, give it a little bit more depth. And then you put your semi-gloss or your satin on 1 or 2 layers, and then it gives you a smoother, you know, the grain and everything is not so flattened out and muted. So yeah, that's it. I think it's pretty close. I just need to put in glue blocks here. That's why I keep the tape on here. I built these tables once and I actually finished this, and then I had to actually screw down the glue blocks. But those will act as stops for the drawer to sit in there. You can also, I've seen people put them in the back. So we'll see how these things fit, and maybe that'll be a quick video about just setting that up. But yeah, I gotta wrap it up. I mean, these things are good to go. Well, you know, you learn from experience, Rowan, and you know, I have some really, really interesting pieces of furniture here. Like in the attic, I have a huge table, and I have some cool nightstands in the basement. And I sit on them because they need to be documented adequately, because they're going to be amazing, and so, but they're going to need a lot of work. So I'm going to flip the camera here, and all right, good luck to everybody. Tune in if you are the Flipping Idiot. That's the channel. I'm going to turn this into just a regular video. Hopefully it uploads. I had one technical difficulty with a live video, but here's my face. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see what I get up to next. There's there's a bunch of black walnuts sitting in my living room I'm going to start connecting, and that is for people that hate Festool Domino. You probably shouldn't watch that video, and if you're curious about the Festool Domino, you should probably watch that video. So I don't know if I'll do it live or if I'll do a like an edited video, but that is going to happen. And there's some table legs, table base I need to build for a natural kind of live edge coffee table where the top's already made. So a lot of stuff happening, and I'll try and document as much of it as possible for you. All right, thanks again for watching. Yeah, but don't be afraid. Just be on the safe side. And oh, thanks, Rowan. All right, now you know where to find me. All right, with that, I will say goodbye to everybody. Take care, be safe in the shop, and until the next video, which shouldn't be too long because I've got the house to myself while the family's gone. So I'll definitely make some videos whether I go live or not. All right, take care. Bye.